poverty's really hit a lot harder in West Virginia.
Yeah.
A lot less jobs and a lot more drugs. I taught high school for a year too.
Yeah.
And just talking to all those kids and hearing what they're being told.
Yeah.
And it's like, to them, school doesn't matter at all.
What about other kind of aspects of like daily life there in terms of, you know, family dynamics or relations between men and women, you know, kind of dating, things you do for fun, that kind of stuff? Like what does that sort of look like in terms of, at least, you know, for you kind of growing up and the town that you were in?
Family dynamics, I would say, have shifted a lot recently.
Okay, how so?
Just because like when my parents were growing up, I'd say this is true for most everywhere, but poverty's really hit a lot harder in West Virginia. A lot less jobs and a lot more drugs. So the family structure is kind of fallen apart. Like most of my friends, their parents aren't married or still together or anything. A lot of grandparents raising the kids, stuff like that, situations. I grew up in a two-parent household.
So you're lucky.
Everyone that I knew older than me, like my parents did, everybody. It's kind of, family is still very important, and it is like children, raising them, it is important, and it's like just sort of being blown apart by drugs and poverty. But yeah.
Is that something you want to talk about? If you want to talk about it, we can. If you don't, like, we can steer clear of it.
I mean, I don't mind talking about it.
Yeah,
I don't know how much to add that hasn't already been said. But.
Well, I mean, but I think, you know, in a lot of cases, right, plenty of people in certain areas of the country have had similar kind of, you know, downturns in the state of people's lives. Other parts of the country, I think people are almost not even aware of it. So if you want to talk about it, like and I'm just curious to hear about it, like your experiences.
Well, I mean, if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to. But like, growing up in it, I would say it kind of was just a part of life. Like, I would go with my friends down to the park. We'd ride our bikes to Bruce Park to play basketball. And you would be playing with, I mean, we were in middle school, and the guys that you were playing with were all like 20-year-olds, and yeah, they'd at some point always just be like, we'll be right back, go to their car, and then come back, and you knew what they were doing. But I'll say, like, I think you can get a wrong image of people. There is a lot of, like, any crime that really happens is usually them stealing from their own families and stuff. As people, they weren't ever bad people. So it's like you playing basketball with them, their defense got a little slower after they went and shot up or smoked something. But they were nice guys. They never did anything. They never also tried to offer us anything or sell us anything. So it's like judging the person and not the
not the circumstance. Yeah, in a way. And was that sort of stuff that came, and I know this is true nationally, but it was really in the last kind of like 30, 40 years, right? And this was really once, because you mentioned there was a lot of steel and a lot of coal, and those were major industries there. And again, one of the few things I would have said I knew about West Virginia was like coal mining is like huge in that state. Like,
and it's still pretty big.
And it's still pretty big, okay, okay. But a lot of that kind of was shut down in kind of what, 70s and 80s? 80s, yeah. 80s and 90s, okay. And so that you said there's really been that, that shift that's really happened in terms of the family structure as it used to be, which would have been pretty, should we say, traditional in a lot of ways, in terms of like very traditional, which has now kind of been broken apart in a lot of cases, to the point where you said like growing up in a two-parent household made you very lucky. Yeah. And would you say that obviously had a major impact too in you being able to like advance in life in a way that you thought a lot of your friends maybe didn't have the opportunity to?
I would say so, definitely. But also, mostly just because, well, not mostly because, but my parents were always, they put education very high up on the list of importance. My other friends, not necessarily so much. And my parents also, like my dad works at a chemical factory, which those are also probably going to be shut down soon. And when my brothers and I were all growing up, they kind of knew that it was all going to go away. And they pushed us to not like rely on, like, don't expect to get that coal mining job. Don't expect to have the job that I have. Do something else and try to go somewhere else because this stuff isn't going to be here. My other friends didn't have that. Yeah.
Is that one of the things, and I want to talk about, you know, like things you really miss about the state and things you like about the state, but was one of the themes that you said maybe once you left was kind of lacking is this focus on education, that you said that that's not really pushed as much in like large parts of the culture?
Definitely not. Because I taught high school for a year too.
Yeah.
And just talking to all those kids and hearing what they're being told. And it's like, to them, school doesn't matter at all. Because right now, another thing that is in the area that I grew up in, at least, oil drilling's really big. But those are short-term jobs too. Where like you might work for a couple months on an oil rig, but then once it's set up and done, you might have to move across the country to get another job.
Yeah.
And I don't think these kids realize that. But they see that you can make $120,000 at 18 years old immediately. So they're just like, screw math, I don't need any of this.
Yeah, I mean, it must be sort of tough when you see that as like the world that you kind of live in. And especially if, you yourself, you're advancing, but you can see other people that you're friends with and and you're like, they're not gonna like go as far. Must be tough.
It is, and I will say that's another thing about like growing up in a small town. You're limited by how many people you can actually meet and different personalities, but also like you're kind of forced to be friends with the people that are just geographically close to you. So my friend group growing up was a good mix of people that like, I would say from my like core group of like 5 friends in high school, if you're gonna narrow it down to like the group, one of us is, well, I'm here. Another one, he's in med school now. My other buddy has his master's in cybersecurity. And another one works for an oil rig. And then the 5th one died of an overdose. So it's like all people who hung out every day, but then just went totally different directions. Yeah.
And 1 to maybe 1.5 of them like in a really not good direction. But then 3 of you guys like did do pretty well. You're doing cybersecurity, med school, and then like film and TV and all that. Yeah. That's interesting.